I live, I die, I live again. It's me, Pontiac.
Well, that's our show, folks.
Back on the train.
It's car time.
It's car time.
It is car time. We'll just start with car time.
I'm Antonio, and that's Kenny.
What's your name?
Sam, as it has been. Yes.
Here on Drive Theory tonight, we are doing a group podcast. So it's not just Tony and myself. We also have Liam and Sam. We are doing a story on John DeLorean. My sources for writing this is the Detroit News, LA Times, Detroit Automotive Hall of Fame's, Forbes, the New York Times, the memoir The Rise and Fall of John DeLorean by Suzanne Snyder, the DeLorean Motor Company, and the DeLorean Museum, as well as Haggerty. Also, if you guys want to check out other really good DeLorean content, I would highly recommend Donut Media's DeLorean podcast that they did. As well as I want to say Haggerty did something on that in addition. So yeah, I guess we'll jump right into it. Let me ask you guys one more time, just for redundancy, in case I've cut the previous time I asked this. What's the first thing you guys think of when you hear the name DeLorean?
Well, me personally, I think of the DeLorean DMC-12.
Yeah.
You look like you might be thinking of the same thing, Leo.
Nah, I think of Wegos.
Okay, all right.
Yeah.
Never mind. I'm just a
Yeah.
I'm just a tadpole in a goldfish pond, or however they say it.
I honestly don't have any idea where you got that idea from.
What do you think of?
It's what I want it to be as a design, like currently, right? So we saw the Hyundai N74 concept come out somewhat recently, within the past.
Sick car.
Sick
right? Car.
All that, and I said that's a great interpretation of the old DeLorean.
Absolutely.
Now, here's something you might know. Here's something you might know, or you might not know, Sam. Is that John DeLorean did not design that car because he is dead.
Oh,
right. Oh shoot!
So you're wrong.
yeah.
I don't know what to tell you.
Yeah, that was a really stupid idea of you there.
Like what I want is a car styled like that.
Yeah.
Now with some of that ethos and mindset in its design currently, and we don't have a lot of examples of that.
Right. Yeah.
So,
No, we don't. But we don't even have that because it's also a concept car. But also, another important fact: John DeLorean, not Korean. So I have no idea where they got that from.
Well, I think of Back to the Future when I think of DeLorean. I think that's what most people think of.
Toyota pickup.
Right.
Truck.
Marty McFly, also not Korean.
Yeah.
What's up with that?
True facts.
Okay.
Guys,
So,
we're all about facts on this show.
how did a man who earned a contract with the United States Air Force end up going against the FBI in a $24 million court case? How did the son of immigrants rise from abject poverty to become the youngest division chief in General Motors history and become the founding father of the American muscle car, only to become the father of embezzlement and $175 million in debt?
The father of embezzlement. Now that is...
Thank you. I thought that was quite scalding when I wrote that. This was the story of John DeLorean, the perfect storm to create a moving refrigerator, a lot of drugs, and an accidental cultural icon. Welcome to Drive Theory.
Welcome to Drive Theory.
Welcome to, what's the show again called?
Car Time.
Car Time.
You guys are cool.
Oh, welcome to car time.
Okay, so origins. John Zachary DeLorean was born January 6, 1925 in Detroit, Michigan to parents Zachary and Catherine, both Romanian immigrants. Times were hard for the DeLorean family. The parents were both from Romania and had immigrated 20 years prior, spending time working in Montana and Indiana before coming to Detroit for its larger pool of opportunity. Mr. DeLorean found work as a carpenter and also as a union organizer for the Ford Motor Company. However, his poor English kept him from progressing further to higher paying wages. Just as a side note here, every source that I read, and I listed out all the sources, so there's a lot of them. Everyone didn't frame it to the fact that English was the second language. They were just like, yeah, he's
just bad at English.
Yeah. So I'm trying to be able to.
Mr. DeLorean he was not good in school.
Wasn't for him. So I tried to be easy on him when I wrote this part until I got to the learning stage of Mr. DeLorean, where he was pretty domestic. He was pretty much Mr. Domestic Violence in this story. So, he was just bad at speaking and bad at his home life too.
Bad at not beating his wife.
Yeah. So speaking
I'm really good at not beating my wife.
That's good. It's a great skill to have.
That's what our last episode was about. I'm sorry, Eric. So, speaking of Mrs. DeLorean, she worked for General Electric and typically took on like odd jobs and pretty much did whatever she could to support her family because her husband was kind of in and out of work. She was baller though because she ended up in 1942. She divorced her husband and moved away with her kids by herself as a single mom in 1942.
Hell so, yeah! Was she good at English?
No.
Better than Mr. DeLorean, I guess. So
was she good at not beating her wife?
Yes.
I don't know.
One of the best, actually.
So this determination in their households continued with John DeLorean, one of their sons, who ended up being accepted into the Cass Technical High School, a technical academy for Detroit's honor students. He did well and earned a scholarship at the Lawrence Institute for Technology, where he honed his interest in car design and learned about industrial engineering. His education was going well, and he was elected into the school's honor society and had a lot of good things going for him. The only problem is that global war was right around the corner. World War II, the squeakquel, ended up seeing DeLorean drafted into the Army, where he served for 3 years until his honorable discharge after the war.
Hold on, we didn't even talk about the first one.
World War II, the Electric Boogaloo.
So, post-war, he had a lot of different jobs and interests, from automotive body shops to less than a semester of law school, to life insurance, where he succeeded with that thanks to his continued tenacity and ambition.
However, he finished law school really fast.
Yeah. So
speed run.
The law school or insurance was not his passion. A higher up recommended he try for a position at Chrysler's post-grad program that advanced his education while giving him actual time into the industry. So fast forward to 1957. DeLorean completed night classes while working to earn his master's degree, and was ready to make a splash in Detroit's global influence. So far, this is the story of success against the odds. DeLorean came from humble beginnings, made more of himself, served his country in the war, and came back and supported his family while bettering his education. That said, if we ended the story here, you get a nice, boring, regular story about an executive who came up and succeeded at the end. But you better buckle up, good buddies, because this rodeo hasn't even started yet.
But wait, there's more.
Yeah. So before we continue on into what he started innovating, I want to be clear here is that this is really a story of a guy who he wasn't just like a druggie, or he wasn't just an idiot that made his way. He was genuinely tenacious, and he genuinely had a crazy work ethic, and he was genuinely innovative and had a lot of good ideas. So
a lot of times people with crazy work ethics need drugs to continue to work at the pace that their brain thinks they need to work at.
Right.
I mean, he saw an opportunity. He just grabbed the wrong bag.
Oh, I see where this is going. This is a switcheroo story.
Right. Also, to be clear, since he did beat the entrapment case, all of this is a joke. None of this is real. None of this is fact checked. This is all of our opinions.
Yes, indeed.
So, okay.
This whole story is our opinion.
Right.
Everything
That
we're
is
saying right
my
now,
opinion.
we
It is my
made it up.
opinion that John DeLorean was born in 1925.
Yeah. So making waves in displacement. By the late 50s, with the experience working for Chrysler, Packard, Studebaker, and finally GM, I want to say he worked for AMC as well. DeLorean was on his way to making history. He quickly made waves at Pontiac, working with big names in the GM umbrella such as Paul Estes and Bunky Knudsen.
Bunky Knudsen? Bunky Knudsen. That's the man's name?
That is the man's name, Bunky Knudsen.
This is what people were named in the 50s. Bunky.
Yeah.
This is what
I'm pretty sure I call that cat Bunky as a joke.
What's funny is I feel like your cat has a more normal name than you, and you have a more normal name than Bunky Knudsen. And especially Knudsen is spelled with a K in the beginning of it.
Knudsen.
Knudsen.
So, anyways,
Bunky Knudsen.
this was a good time for him.
What's
Are we going to have an episode later on Bunky? Because that's hysterical. I don't know.
I think it's good. Yeah. So DeLorean at this point in his time produced dozens of patented improvements and innovations for the company. One of them, for example, is I want to say he pioneered torque converter technology as well as like 2-speed hydroglide transmissions, which back in the 50s that was pretty like primo, right?
Sure.
So in 1961, he was promoted to division chief engineer, which he was, I want to say, not only was he the youngest later on to be promoted to that in Chevy, but he was definitely the youngest in Pontiac. So finally, he had
that particular, or to be an executive, or like to be a chief engineer, or what?
I want to say to be a chief engineer to begin with, yeah.
I see.
So finally, he had his chance to make a memorable car, even if it had to be a Pontiac. The Pontiac GTO hit the streets in early 1964 and was responsible for the proliferation of the American sports coupe with a V8.
Yeah.
In other words, the GTO, and by proxy, Mr. DeLorean, is the father of the American muscle car.
It's a bit of a reach, I feel like.
I don't know, man.
Maybe, I don't.
Yeah, he really was.
Well,
so,
was that not the first time they were like, all right, big engine, little car instead of a truck?
Right.
And then that's basically pioneering the muscle car, is it not? That's like the raw formula of a muscle car.
I won't fight you on it.
Well, I have more context in the next paragraph or two. So before we go into the numbers of this car, we have to acknowledge the mountains moved to get the GTO into the world to begin with. Yeah. General Motors had other sports cars, and even though marketing said otherwise, that wasn't the explicit purpose of Pontiac. Besides, it had the Corvette to contend with, and no one was going to interfere with the Halo car sales. No one except for John DeLorean. In the early 60s, the Pontiac Tempest was due for an update, and all GM enforced was no involvement in auto racing and organized events. But that was the first of two key loopholes in the GTO's inception, is that they never said that Pontiac couldn't appeal to the street. So the GTO burned rubber and shot the bird as a loophole GM's second restrictive rule that if it wasn't going in their precious Corvette, you could offer a maximum engine displacement of 5.4 liters or 330 cubic inches into your lesser non-Corvette chassis. DeLorean would not be appeased. He and his team worked in secret at GM's factory to find and build a formula to steal the young market's heart. Something Ford giant Lee Iacocca was also shooting for and would eventually be inspired by DeLorean's creation with his own development of his own performance coupe.
Lee Iacocca's name just is all over the second half of the 20th century. Just all over car history. It doesn't matter what company you're talking about.
Right, yeah. But it's kind of crazy, though, because he is genuinely... fun fact, I don't want to get too far ahead of myself here, but Lee Iacocca and... DeLorean became rivals, and DeLorean asked Iacocca, like out of spite or like, trolling or whatever, he asked Iacocca to be his best man at a second wedding. I
love that.
Yeah. Anyways, okay. So Lee Iacocca was also shooting for that, and he would eventually be inspired by DeLorean's creation with his own development of his own performance coupe.
Is this the Mustang?
This is the Mustang.
Okay, all right.
So,
spoiler alert, I guess.
In the end, Pontiac found that if they offered a larger engine as an option and not standard equipment, they could drop in the hottest 360 horsepower, 6.6 liter big block.
6.6 liter big block. This is before the gas crisis?
Right, yeah. This is well before the gas. This caused the gas crisis.
Hell yeah.
So, also, so that's what they did. And also, my aunt had the same one that I was talking about in the last episode with the 260Z. She had one of these. She had the Chevrolet version, the SS396. And I spoke to her about this car, and she said that it tried to tear the pavement off of the ground every time she drove it.
360 horsepower, which I think you and me had this conversation earlier, where I do not trust the measuring instruments from back in the late 50s, 60s, and these engines could have been making a whole lot more power.
Yeah, sure.
But even if we took them at their word, 360 horsepower, adjusted for inflation, I'm pretty sure that's like 1900 horsepower.
So here's the thing, though, is like, this is pure speculation. I was joking about speculation before, but this is pure speculation. I do not believe DeLorean when he says horsepower numbers, and once I read the next few paragraphs, neither should you. So, history was made. Pontiac rose from the old lady car ashes and blossomed as a hip, fast king of the streets. A Pontiac, by the way. In addition to this,
Pontiac. Whoa, Pontiacs are kind of cool sometimes,
but not then.
No, but now. I wasn't around then,
or now.
I'm not around now either. Or Pontiac's not around now. So who's the real king of the streets? It's me.
Yeah. Cue another Mercedes-Benz tangent.
No, this is more of a Pontiac was alive. Now he's alive. Now Pontiac's not alive, so he's the last man standing.
Yeah,
Mercedes' maximum displacement is 4 liters an hour.
Right. Have you guys ever noticed that you've never seen Pontiac and Tony in the same room together at the same time?
I feel like that's the appropriate time to do a little cut-in of a very poorly edited Illuminati triangle.
I live, I die, I live again. It's me, Pontiac.
Well, that's our show, folks.
We could at least do an ad break.
Hold on, right. I bet I can change.
After a word from these sponsors.
Who would sponsor this show?
Haggerty.
Pontiac.
DeLorean.
Yeah.
Okay. History was made. Pontiac rose from the old lady car ashes and blossomed as a hip, fast king of the streets. In addition to this, DeLorean was promoted to fully head up Pontiac and only with the higher suits up at GM to tell him what to do. But then came the consequences of opening Pandora's box. Chrysler saw the success of the GTO, and its response was potent with the Hemi-powered boats leading the straight line charge. Corporate GM was, unsurprisingly, asleep at the wheel at this time. They just didn't understand the appeal or importance or market share of what a halo car is or needed to be. Additionally, the Corvette would not share its place on GM's lineup with any Pontiac, and the Grand Prix was too lightweight and luxury-oriented to aim at anything Mopar was putting out. All that in mind, this wasn't even the biggest problem for Pontiac, as there was a far bigger Godzilla rising up from the depths. 400,000 sales in his first full production year. 400,000 sales.
That's like half of the population of the U.S.
400,000? What car is this? Are we talking about?
Well, okay. Who could have seen this coming? What was so great about a small car that
he wasn't prepared for that question.
Straight line. Well, Lee Iacocca saw it coming, and now the Mustang is here.
This is still going.
This went on for 3.5 long.
I think it's the GTO he's talking about. Or no, it's the Mustang. Okay, there we go. I was right the second time. Tony changed his name and zoomed.
I know, yeah. It was like Okay. I just want to say, too, 400,000 sales in a year in 1964 and in 1965. 400,000 sales in a year in 2023 is a lot of numbers.
What car was that?
It was the Mustang.
Still the Mustang.
Okay. All right, just want to make sure.
Yep.
It didn't happen twice.
Right. So this went on for 3.5 years. 3.5 years before GM could put out anything or did put out anything. The only other car that I've really seen that is like that has been like, the Raptor went completely unchecked in the market for like 10 years before anyone made a competitor for it. Yeah. This is similar to it because you got to think in the 60s, the muscle car is new. It is the new thing. So like the market is on fire right now. You've got Mopar that's brand new. You got the GTO. You got the SS396. You got the Corvette, which has the biggest engine that they could put. And the Corvette is the only car that GM offers that were allowed to put over, I want to say, over 10 horsepower per pound in a vehicle. So you could have a absolutely massive elephant of an engine in the Corvette.
Yeah.
So in one of what's considered, especially the C2 during this time, the C2 was considered to have one of the most sports car oriented and best engines of the time, paired with, like, I read a car and driver review from the 80s, and it said that the C2 has, I want to say, one of the most compelling cases for a sports car engine of all time. But the problem was they forgot to put it in a sports car.
That's what I was thinking too. Because if it's such a great, I mean, it's shit now. Although it's beautiful,
Right?
It's gorgeous.
Yeah.
But oh my god, this, like, I think because the first Corvette accomplishes more of a stylistic sports car than what the C2 needed to accomplish to compete with the Mustang, which is be an actual performance car by any means.
Which is funny because, like, I didn't cover this in the DeLorean podcast because we already get so side off track. Hey, Iggy.
Hey, Iggy.
Get a sidetrack.
It's a me, Iggy.
So, but like, the Mustang was still very much the Secretary's car, and and that's part of what made it work. So you had a lot of rotating assemblies, pun intended, for this stuff. So anyways, 3.5 years after this, GM puts out the Camaro. The entire 3 years, DeLorean pleaded with top brass at GM to let him develop a Mustang killer, but instead all they gave him was the scraps of the Camaro, the Firebird. In their mind, this was simply a fight too big to have DeLorean impeding on, and once again, corporate made the mistake of trying to limit what DeLorean knew he could get around. A new policy was decreed in order to again protect the image of the Corvette, preventing any GM passenger car other than the Vette from having more than 1 horsepower per 10 pounds. DeLorean was growing tired of this, and the same 6.6-liter engine that rocketed the top GTO somehow made its way into the Firebird with a suspiciously, conveniently lower horsepower number than what it had before, with the exact same bore, stroke. Everything about the engine was the same. It just happened to have a lower horsepower number now. So as it turns out, the Camaro also figured out that it could put the same engine in its car too. So what happened there is DeLorean put a small tab on the throttle linkage, preventing it from fully opening it up. So when these cars would get like dynoed or tested, whatever the equivalent was back then, it would get tested at like 1,000 RPM below the peak of what it could do.
Sure.
And as soon as before it hit the sales floor and before it got to the press cars, that throttle linkage would be
just come off.
Yeah, it would just, because I read about this, and no press car ever had the throttle linkage, and no production car ever had the throttle linkage. It was only present for the testing of the car.
That's sneaky. It's like a restrictor plate.
Right.
it's just a fucking little bump stop from you to keep you from opening the throttle all the way.
Right. VW diesel gauge.
Yeah. Yeah. Honestly, I would genuinely compare it to Mercedes and German stuff, what they're rating stuff at right now. But okay.
Yeah, but that's just words. They don't put anything on the car to make it not make power.
Japanese gentleman's
agreement. No, this really is the gentleman's agreement, except this was John DeLorean saying
it was just John DeLorean.
Yeah, it was
this was not a gentleman's agreement. There was no agreeing here.
Well, no, I was saying this is John DeLorean saying screw your gentleman agreement.
Oh yeah.
I was for a gentleman agreement.
Sneaky Capricorn.
Right. So for the rest of the decade, DeLorean continued to capitalize on his success.
We share a birthday, John and I. So.
John,
cute. That's cute. What else do you share?
Cocaine.
Please wait for the rest of the episode.
Spoiler alert.
Yeah,
Gonna go rock and come back with
the insurance fraud and. So for the rest of the decade, DeLorean continued to capitalize on his success. He was promoted head of Chevrolet due in part to his leadership as a positive, highly profitable Pontiac. Despite his growing reputation as an off-the-wall, uncontrollable wild card of the industry, he
wait. Head of Chevrolet? Like he became the CEO?
Of Chevrolet, yeah.
Oh, nice.
Well, not the CEO. He became the head of Chevrolet.
Like their development.
Yeah, head of
something.
Yeah. I
forget what the title was.
Right. What he was doing at Pontiac, he's now doing at Chevy. So now he's got control over the Corvette. So that's great. His adversity is over. So the thing is, he dressed casually. He boldly stayed in pop culture relevance. And I already told you guys about this, but he invited Lee Iacocca to be his best man at a second wedding. He was really the first person, I would say, to be a celebrity businessman. He really I would say he pioneered that look. Because can you name any CEO or executive at any car company right now other than Maurizio? But that's only because he got a car named after him. But any casual person, whether they're a car person or not, I don't think you can really just pull a name out of your hat that's a car executive. But
so what? So John DeLorean was like Brad Pitt big, and he was just a car executive.
I think he was Elon Musk big and Donald Trump big.
Oh, yeah, I didn't even think about Elon Musk.
Yeah, and I think it was a similar kind of thing. I'm not saying anything good about it, but I just think he paved the way for personalities like that.
I bet John DeLorean would have had some problematic tweets.
Oh, just beat the FBI about By the way, buy my car.
I'm gonna buy Twitter, lol.
So it's at this point of the story that we should pause and reflect on where we are with DeLorean here. He's earned his way through the ranks. He's worked with and around the challenges and restrictions of his ambitious projects. There's little that shapes and impacts our human experience like creativity, and nothing fosters outcomes like restrictions. It's possible that without these restrictions, DeLorean was set to eventually fall flat. It's difficult to pinpoint any one pivotal moment in someone's career in downward spiral, but I believe that this is that point. Chevy was run much differently and much more ineffectively compared to what he cultivated at Pontiac. Despite his immediate improvement and his business prowess, many attempts at reform and improvement and brand revitalization continue to yield only new enemies and uphill battles because of his highly radical ideas. Right. Well, here's the thing. Here's the coolest part to me about it is the most preposterous, the craziest idea that he had was in 1971. He okayed the development of a rotary-powered mid-engine Corvette.
Yeah.
The Aerovet.
The Aerovet.
Yeah. I've heard of this.
Yeah. So he was behind that. He wasn't the engineer behind it, but he approved it. He was like, yeah, there needs to be the mid-engine is the answer.
It really sucks to hear that of his struggles and such, because people in the late 60s and early 70s were super open to change, and I can't imagine where this desire to keep the status quo would have come from in our American culture in this time period.
I thought I was supposed to bring the snark to this.
Yeah, tell me he's a spicy meatball tonight.
I'm always a spicy meatball. What's up, baby?
Spicy meatball.
GM, this kind of stuff ended up boiling over, and GM held a gala in 1972 inviting all of the top corporate echelon. Sorry, I was about to say echelon, but I caught myself. With DeLorean
all the top corporate Elon Musks.
Right, being invited, DeLorean was invited to give a commencement speech. He wrote a scathing, detailed account of every issue that he held with GM, its current direction, the lack of ambition, and the lukewarm products that inspired no lasting brand loyalty. Once his peers caught wind, they pleaded and convinced him for the sake of those around him to tone it down. He did, and gave a mild speech with no bombshells. Of course, that wouldn't last long, and somebody leaked the original, unedited version of the speech to the press.
Yeah.
Publications went wild. DeLorean was on record saying, quote, "There is no forward response at General Motors to what the public wants today. The car should be making people's eyes light up when they step into the showroom. Rebates are merely a way of convincing customers to buy bland cars that they're not interested in." He's talking, unquote. This is him talking about the company that he heads.
Yeah.
And so An internal investigation resulted in the shocking information that DeLorean himself was the one that leaked the speech. How
He
could
did
it?
That can't be.
This would not do. He was encouraged to resign from his station post haste. DeLorean, being the experienced, charming, plastic surgery face of a popular franchise, knew exactly what to do with this.
Hey, we didn't get to the plastic surgery. You got plastic surgery?
He got a lot of plastic surgery.
So that's where GM got their inspiration for their interiors from this point forward.
Yeah,
Just
don't
a
you?
shit ton of
Pretty
plastic.
much, yeah.
Black and plastic.
Real quick, just show them the interior of your car for reference.
Exactly.
What's funny is my car looked head and shoulders above what's currently in the garage right now because we were surrounded by D40 Nissans, and I'm pretty
God damn, man.
if you melted all of the interiors of the trucks down to one piece of rubber, it would be a rubber ball that wouldn't even bounce. Like, the substance of this is, pretty much the same as like a cork. Okay. So he was encouraged to step down, and he spun the news regarding his fall from grace with the automotive giant, telling the New York Times that he, quote, didn't want the job anyways because a top management job at GM consists of sitting in meetings all day. Even at $650,000 a year, if the job is not satisfying, you do something else, unquote. $650,000.
What year was this? $5 million a year?
Not nothing.
But if it's not satisfying, you do something else.
Yeah.
This is coming from the man who GM, as part of a severance package, they gave him an entire Cadillac franchise as a severance package.
Okay, hold
What
on.
does that even mean?
Point out though that this is what 71. You said.
Yeah.
In 71, Cadillac's like, here's a 7.2 liter, 180 horsepower.
Yeah. This is not great years.
Well, I actually think that was later. I think that was closer to the gas crisis. Well, no, we're at the precipice because this is 1973.
Yes, this is the 70s.
So you've got the was it the Tornado?
A buddy of mine has a Coupe de Ville convertible with the Continental package, and it's
They're like
2.5.
They're like 5 years away from the Civic coming out and rocking everybody's world.
Yeah, dude.
Will not fit in my garage.
I'm already calling now the next long form content that we do, like that's like a research based discussion video like this, is going to be about Honda, because I watched a video on the NSX today that was by ECME, and wow, Honda has had such a cool rise to success.
It's been a roller coaster.
Yeah. So you're fresh out of a career that has earned you tens of millions of dollars adjusted for inflation. Sure. You get a dope retirement package, to say the least. Yeah. You're still making money for life from a company that you don't even work for, that you talk shit about to the company and then leaked it to the press. You're rich. You have nothing to worry about. What if you had the time to develop your own sports car now that you no longer have the Corvette to tiptoe around?
I'm pretty sure that's what Will.i.am did. Does he? Sorry, Sam. Do you not know about I.am Motors?
I guess not. I don't know about that. We'll come back to that.
Will.i.am has his own car. You need to look it up. It's awesome.
All right, I'm looking it up right now.
I'm not going to put all these inserts in this episode, man.
Yes, you are.
Hey.
So, developing his own sports car is exactly what DeLorean had in mind. He married another supermodel and then quickly began work on his own motor company named the DeLorean Motor Company.
This is what he was doing the whole time.
Right. So, fast forward 2 years, 1975. DMC was running and they were working on securing funds for a factory and cars that would encapsulate, quote, the best of everything.
Such a great pun opportunity.
What?
Run DMC.
No, I did. I just.
Oh, did he?
Yeah, I did. I just didn't say it. I'm not bad. I wouldn't say that I'm bad. I think I'm doing pretty good, so all things considered. But I am pretty bad at this. So,
and for those of you, if Isaac doesn't put a picture of the Will.i.am car in here, it looks like if you made a G-Wagon a SL.
If you made a G-Wagon an S-Style, if you made a two-door car version of a G-Wagon.
Yeah.
If I didn't already know what this looked like, I would have a better understanding of what it looked like before you gave that description.
Yeah, I think that completely destroys.
Sounds like a Vehi cross.
I want a Vehi cross.
Same.
Okay, so the best of everything is what they were going for with this. So first they needed a concept car to wow the masses, and they needed investors like Johnny Carson, for example, and I want to say the Reagan family, and eventually the Northern Irish government. So to do this, DeLorean hired some of the best people that he could. He hired on the likes of Colin Chapman, who was a Formula One savant and the eventual founder of the slowest car company in the world, Lotus.
Lotus, baby. We love Colin Chapman.
Sam,
The best.
yeah, Sam is our resident Colin Chapman man. When I sent him the script in January, and I think he said that he read it in 18 minutes.
In January.
Yeah, in January. And he also said something along the lines of like, "I swear to God, I'll burn this city to the ground if you disrespect Colin Chapman again," or something like that.
Listen, Colin Chapman deserves to be disrespected simply for his involvement with the DMC-12 here. But we love Colin Chapman regardless.
There's Colin Chapman, and then there's the man who designed the car itself. And okay, before I get into him though, the DMC-12 is the name of this concept car, and the name was meant to be a reference to the proposed $12,000 MSRP that the car was promised to start at. To design the look of the car, a world-renowned designer, Giorgetto Giugiaro, was brought in to create the ultimate American sports car. This is perhaps, in my opinion, one of the biggest name drops of the entire story. Giugiaro needs his own podcast, but for today, we'll keep it short with the highlights. Widely considered to be the greatest automotive designer of the 20th century, he designed the likes of the Lotus Esprit, the Ferrari 250 GT, the Maserati Ghibli, the Alfa Romeo Giulia, the 2006 Mustang Concept, the Volkswagen Golf, the Scirocco, and countless others, not to mention his prolific work designing Beretta handgun,
What?
Seiko watches, in every
Seiko.
major... Yeah, every major camera body, Nikon camera body, from the F4S to the D4 to the D5, all the way up to the D800, to the organ in the cathedral in Lausanne, and my favorite, the pasta shape, Morille.
Okay.
I don't
Giugiaro,
even know what that pasta shape is, and I consider myself very well versed in pasta.
I mean, look at him. He's a spicy meatball.
Oh, really?
Giugiaro based the DMC-12 on a Porsche design that he penned 5 years prior for a concept. While Chapman continued the development on the engineering side, DeLorean focused his attention on private investors, offering everything from the shares of the company to the proverbial kitchen sink. The issue, however, was while he was charismatic and popular in the social and pop culture world, he left a bad taste, obviously, in the mouths of his newfound competitors, the much larger and established companies in Detroit. Funding was sparse, but before long, there would be divine intervention. Where other countries...
So we got God in this story too?
We do.
That might be a pretty big name drop. He did like Earth and stuff.
Yeah, but he didn't design any watches, so. He just designed time.
There you go.
So
there you go. He decided it would be a circle.
where
That is why clocks are round.
That's a red versus blue reference for you guys.
That's a good one. That's a good one.
Where other countries and corporations denied funding continually for a startup company's factory, unique circumstances, to say the least, led to the factory being built in the midst of one of the most notable bloody instances of ethnology nationalist conflicts in Europe in the 20th century. In extreme abbreviation, Catholic and Protestant civil riots led to destabilization, and Irishmen clashed with bombings, shootings, and all-out warfare with one another until the United Nations and the British Army had to intervene.
And now it's one of my favorite drinks.
Two of them, actually. Car bombs and hand grenades.
Oh my.
Yeah.
On top of the deaths, injuries, destroyed property, and general the unemployment rate there at the time was sky high and upwards of 40%. 40% unemployment rate. This is a car podcast, I promise. This made the British government desperate for reform. Any jobs that they could generate would be helpful beyond quantification, and that made them less than picky. DMC was offered more than $100 million and land in Ireland to build his factory. While this was a giant sum, DeLorean knew that it would only be sufficient to get the first car out, and not a dime would be left after. This meant that not only did they have to turn a profit immediately at DMC, but it also meant that any delay at all would be detrimental to the success of the car, and it would surely spell disaster for the company.
This sounds like foreshadowing that this car is not going to be $12,000.
Well,
Who would have thunk it?
this time, Colin Chapman cut ties with DeLorean. After growing suspicious of a mysterious Geneva-based account DeLorean was funneling millions of dollars into with refusal for any explanation whatsoever. So, like, just imagine he's just like, hey, well, I guess...
Where are these millions of dollars going?
No.
No.
Right, yeah. So, anyway, beyond this, continued delays and an economic recession, and the oil crisis, of course, didn't see the car reaching fruition for 9
years. Jesus Christ. Although I've never tried to design a car, so this could be perfectly a reasonable timeline. Who knows? Why did he just ask the desperate government for more money?
I don't think that Ireland even had $100 million.
Yeah, I was going to say, the Irish government
in
the 70s?
What are they going to give him, a potato?
They had that much.
I'm sorry.
They had that much to give to a car company.
Yeah, I'm sorry. That was too much.
It didn't even exist.
Don't do the accent either.
The car reached fruition 9 years after the peaked interest of most consumers initially steeped and expired. The car was rife with quality control issue and reliability issue, pricing malfeasances, and lackluster performance.
Mm-hmm.
Not only
it's a Lotus.
Well, yeah. Not only did it feature an anemic 6th choice for an engine, 130 horsepower Renault drivetrain, it also starred. Yes, it has a Renault drivetrain, 130 horsepower at that.
God, I'm so glad my American sports car was designed by an Italian and has a French drivetrain in it and is built in Ireland, where there's bombs in cars. It was made in a bomb factory. They're bombs. After 9 years,
the DMC-12 started at the MSRP at $28,000, which
wow, that's hysterical. Imagine if the C8 Corvette was announced and they said it was going to have an MSRP at $60,000, and then dealers started selling them for $120,000. Oh, wait a second. Oh, wait a second. Wait a second. Hold on, never mind. I lost my train of thought.
Well, here's the thing. That car wasn't even painted.
That's true. It wasn't painted or anything. That's hysterical.
But here's the thing. Here's what justifies the C8 Corvette. Not justifies. Here's what gives it better context. DeLorean's longtime thorn in his side came back to haunt him. The Corvette was better performing in every metric, and ironically, was $12,000 cheaper than a DeLorean.
Hey, yeah.
So the only possible way that he could break even is if he sold 12,000 units per year. But by the time it was all said and done, 6,000 were sold worldwide over the course of 3 years.
Oh my God, that's way less than 400,000 units per year in the Mustang.
Yeah. Needless to say, DeLorean was.
What year is this? What year is this, Isaac?
76.
No, this is 80.
Is this 1980?
Oh, I'm sorry, I missed the 9 years.
This is either 79 or 80 or 81.
Because in 1980, $28,000 was 102 large.
Oh my God!
Yeah,
that's insane. Okay,
well,
102,000 bones for one of the shittiest cars ever made.
Right. Z car been out
6 years already.
Yeah.
Like that.
Fuel injection was standardized in 79.
Yeah. Yeah, there were a lot of things not going for it.
Right.
Yeah, like having a friendship powertrain.
Right.
I'm pretty sure those guys lost the war for a reason. Don't ask me what war I'm referring to. Don't ask me what war I'm referring to, but I'm pretty sure they lost it for a reason.
Now, here's the thing. DeLorean was in financial straits. Surprise, surprise.
Whoa.
How much would you guys guess that he was in? Well, never mind. You guys can see the script.
I'm not looking at it though. I'm not looking at it. I genuinely want to guess.
How much money did DeLorean owe, do you think, at this point in time?
I want to guess $500 million.
It's not
Is that
that
going
high.
to make the number? Okay, I was going to say, is that going to make the number sound low now?
Yeah, it was just a measly 140 million.
Okay, all
Yep.
right.
$140 million in debt. Now, in the past, concerning personal grudges and competition outside of the normal gentlemen's agreements and embargoes, General Motors has allegedly been involved in some allegedly shady stuff to get ahead. Allegedly. Corporate espionage, civil racketeering, colluding with government agencies to silence rival, that kind of thing. Allegedly, this is all a joke. We don't mean any of it. Allegedly. That said, there is certainly, definitely no possibility that there was anything like that going on in the DeLorean story.
Sure.
Good. I'm glad. Is this the end of the story then?
You'd be preposterous to think that anything else was going on.
I have never been described as such, sir.
So, side note, real quick, Tony, if you adjusted how much he was in debt by inflation, you'd be right on it. It's $511 million.
Oh
Look at me. I was just thinking forward.
Yeah, that's the financial economics coming out once again. So here's the thing, though. I joke about, alluding to corporate espionage and something like that. Here's the thing, though. I have done a lot of research on this script, and there was genuinely like there's no evidence showing to that. Like, there's conspiracy to it, but the evidence simply points towards DMC just tripping over its own tail over and over again until it tripped down a recession, fell down a rabbit hole, bumped his head, and started hemorrhaging $140 million.
That was quite a gory description of a company.
It's $140 million in debt, man. I don't want to undersell this here.
It's
So
a lot now.
here's the thing. Any personal grudge could have come into play here, but it's important to consider that while DeLorean beat the cases talked about here, that doesn't mean that he wasn't participating and partaking in the activities in question. This isn't even one of those, like, I have to say allegedly here things. Again, he has literally been caught on tape doing this stuff. So, what stuff you say?
I'll tell you.
Right. Cocaine.
Oh, he was caught doing cocaine.
Right.
All right. So,
He's like, I can't smell this. Hold on, let me try again.
This is going to be a whole nother chapter. Do you think it would be a good idea to cut it here so that we have another podcast worth of stuff to talk about?
We're almost done, man. I think
Are we
we're
almost done?
Yeah.
I'm scrolling. There's a lot to scroll through here.
We're almost done.
Yeah, almost done.
Yeah. So, one of DeLorean's old neighbors, James Hossman, was a cocaine enthusiast. And after being caught, that's going to be the name of our next podcast. It's going to be like Coke Theory.
Welcome to Coke Theory.
Yeah, Coke. Welcome to Coke.
Sponsored by
Okay. So James Hossman was a cocaine enthusiast, and after being caught by the FBI, he was offered the deal of a lifetime. So during the 80s, FBI instances of being proactively seeking justice were abound, and if they could bring in a big bust, it would be nothing but good PR in the war on drugs. So Hoffman knew DeLorean he knew him well enough to know that he was obviously terrible with money and needed immediately like $17 million in cash. So thus the target was acquired, right? The FBI funded an operation to convince DeLorean to traffic 220 pounds of cocaine, which is worth an estimated $24 million back then.
Yeah.
Perfect to keep DeLorean afloat for a little longer. So the trap was set in the form of a sting operation where the FBI would tape DeLorean agreeing to the cocaine deal and carrying off the proof of the deal, which was 59 pounds of cocaine, which at that time was $6.5 million in value.
How the fuck was this guy in so much debt?
I just told you.
It sounds like he doesn't know how to sell cocaine.
So
there's an art to it.
There's a nuance. So that's the thing, though. The FBI planned out all of this stuff, and I want to say it was like $10 to $15 million the operation without getting the cocaine. John DeLorean strolls right in, like and strolls right in, sits down, opens the briefcase, scoops up. I shit you not. He scoops up a handful of cocaine, like lets it fall through his hand like sand, and says while laughing, "quote It's better than gold. Gold weighs more than that, for God's sake." Unquote. Wiped his hands, took the briefcase, and immediately left. So the
why did he not just do? If it was me doing that, I would have done exactly what he did, except I would have just done a good wipe across my face like this. You know what I'm saying?
Who's to say that he didn't do that, man? Like I would like to think that there is now 58.9 pounds of cocaine in the briefcase instead of 59.
Right.
So
59 pounds of cocaine. In the briefcase. That is obscene. That's a car battery.
Right.
Yeah.
That's if a car battery is filled with cocaine instead of battery acid.
Needless to say, FBI immediately stormed in and they took their drug lord into custody. So here's the unexpected part of the plan, though, is DeLorean and his legal advisors would actually come back to beat the FBI in court, successfully citing entrapment by the FBI and the DEA. They were one of the first cases to bring this to light, another one being the MK Ultra experience and the court cases resulting from that. So the news of the acquittal rocked the world, and while this ordeal was apparently enough to turn DeLorean into a devout Christian, the initial news of the DeLorean funding his companies via being a drug lord became nails in the coffin for his first supercar company. DMC was done. By the way, I say first here. This doesn't come up anywhere else in the script, but I say first here because I was going to make a joke later on in the script, because he also ran a snowplow company called the DeLorean Motor Company. I think they call them like snowcats or something like that, and those are actually still in service today.
My
like,
brother, this is the biggest cocaine joke in the world. This is true.
No. Well, yeah. Well, that's the. Well,
are you fucking kidding me? The cocaine man, the car cocaine man, started a snowplow company.
Listen,
did he invent those snowplows to move mountains of cocaine in a warehouse or something like that? And he's like, we could use this for snow.
I would highly encourage you guys to look up a DMC snowcat or snowplow, because it shares the same grille and headlights as the DMC 12. And they're also stainless steel.
And the Alpha drivetrain, or
yeah, no, it is surprisingly not.
It was a Renault drivetrain, sir.
So
do not involve the Italians in this, other than the one Italian guy.
Starting to wrap this up. I'm sorry to cut you off, Sam. A year before his arrest by the FBI and subsequent collapse of DMC, he was featured in a magazine saying, quote, "1 out of every 100 businesses succeeds. Here's to those who take the odds," unquote. The mysterious Geneva account from earlier with almost $10 million also came back to bite. And once again, in 1985, DeLorean, not Geneva, was in legal hot water. He was indicted on fraud and embezzlement charges, as well as tax evasion, spanning the entire course of his tenure with his company. He was never convicted.
No.
However, accountants did recover almost $100 million from the creditors, or for the creditors of the DeLorean Motor Companies, in civil court settlements over the course of the 20 years that court began. So from 1985 to 2005, he was never guilty, but there was $100 million that was recovered.
Sure.
So this man, yeah. Another thing too is that is one reason that he never actually got the guilty verdict or whatnot is because Colin Chapman had passed away. I want to say in 2005, and DeLorean just said, yeah, Colin Chapman, that was his account in Geneva, and he said that I could have that as a gift. And apparently I found the Chapman leaving DMC. I found that within 2 seconds of a Google search, and I understand that back then Google wasn't prolific, but did nobody Colin Chapman wasn't around to say no, that wasn't, because he had passed away. But
well, there's probably if there's a claim like that, there's probably some sort of legal thing. You can't if
none of that was checked up on.
Yeah. Also, drunk rich guys are going to be, or coked up rich guys are going to be coked up rich guys.
So
Enthusiast.
that's a segue into the conclusion here. So, coked up rich guy John DeLorean. He rose from the humble beginnings as the eldest son of an immigrant family to a visionary inventing over 200 patents, entire car categories, successful side businesses, and innovations in some cases that were almost 60 years ahead of his time. His flight too close to the sun ended up seeing him fall from an almost 500-acre estate and a 15-room penthouse in Manhattan to a one-room apartment with his fourth wife until his death in 2005. So, despite its failures and drug-fueled journey, how does everyone know the name and car DeLorean? After all, failed and obscure cars litter the history of the automobile, and most people couldn't name a single automotive executive today, save for the celebrity businessman and arguably walking in the footsteps of DeLorean himself, Elon Musk. Enter Steven Spielberg, who is not a car executive, by the way. And in 1980,
to movie time.
Switch gears.
Right. In 1985,
I like what you did there, Sam.
that was good
too.
In
Happy accident.
1985, Spielberg and Robert Zemeckis set out to create a time-traveling blockbuster, Back to the Future. They needed a time machine. A refrigerator was a preferred socket for the bolt, but Spielberg was concerned that if they used one, children would see the movie and then attempt to time travel in their home refrigerator and get stuck inside.
That's a real concern.
A vehicle, because of this, was agreed to be the better option. However, it needed...
And then people lock their children in hot cars until the end of time.
So, here's the thing, though, is that they already started developing the time...
That's why cars say, don't forget to look in the backseat.
Well, yeah. Because of Back to the Future.
Exactly.
Thanks, Steven Spielberg.
Thanks.
And Robert Zemeckis. And Monkey Knudsen.
So... Here's the thing, though, is that they had already started development on the time machine with the refrigerator. So Spielberg wanted to find a car that looked as close to a refrigerator as possible.
Is this real? That's something he actually specifically looked for?
That's something he specifically looked for. So the vehicle that was agreed upon, and the vehicle was agreed upon, even though its top speed was 3 miles short of 88 miles per hour.
Wait, what?
The top speed of a DMC-12 is 85 miles an hour.
The DMC-12 maxed out at 85 miles per hour. How do you make a wedge and it doesn't even?
It had a drag coefficient of 1,000.
Yeah, no kidding. What is the drag coefficient of the DMC-12?
I don't know. But anyways, the DMC-12 was outfitted with flux capacitors and created into an icon into the Hollywood sunset. Mr. DeLorean would later go on to write a letter to Zemeckis thanking him for immortalizing his livelihood. It is partially because of Back to the Future that anyone in 2023, at the time of this recording, knows what a DeLorean is to begin with. Yeah. Also, DeLorean, right after he wrote that letter, sued Zemeckis.
Sick.
But without the film, his legacy would have been totally faded into the past, even with the crazy stories of his roller coaster career.
That's a good point. That's a good point. We wouldn't really know. We wouldn't have really know John DeLorean's name without the DeLorean, without Back to the Future.
Yeah. And despite the crazy stories of his career and his international waves and his hundreds of $1 million worth of upheaval, despite the car being a complete failure, despite the myriad of moral, legal, and ethical issues surrounding his name, despite anything else, the name DeLorean typically makes people think of a cool car, a great movie, and positive experiences surrounding really cool doors, and a car that looks like nothing else. And that's DeLorean.
Just for reference, before we get to the cool facts about DeLorean, the drag coefficient of the DeLorean was 0.34, and a C5 Corvette has, with the coupe, is 0.29, but 3.34 is not bad.
That's not
bad. I would expect as much being shaped like a wedge.
Yeah. Right. Another thing about it is with the I guess, is it gull-wing doors? Is that what it's called? That those were particularly hated by like the Ralph Nader types of like safety-minded people.
I think they should be called bunky doors.
Bunky doors.
Yeah, bunky doors. But that's because when the doors, when and if the car would flip, you just straight up couldn't open the doors because the car was completely flat on the top.
Mm-hmm. It would take quite a bit of effort to flip that car, though.
Right. Yeah.
So if you flipped it, you deserve to be trapped in there.
So, yeah. So, fun facts about DeLorean. DeLorean had a deal with the United States Air Force to build airplane tugs. So there are DMC airplane tugs with the 80s. So
do they also have the same headlights? Because I look up a Snowcat, it does in fact look like a DeLorean DMC-12. Do these airplane tugs also have the same headlights?
No, like they're actually, I don't know.
I haven't looked it up.
I would like to think in an alternate reality where Top Gun is filmed not on an aircraft carrier but on an actual runway that we see DeLorean, airplane tugs. So speaking of military stuff, Northrop Grumman designed the struts and torsion bars for the DMC-12.
Okay.
Following
That's interesting.
Following his bankruptcy, DeLorean had to sell his 434-acre estate. Donald Trump is the person who ended up buying it, and he turned it into a golf course.
Into one golf course, 434 acres.
One golf course, yeah.
That's a lot of acreage for a golf.
Oh, it's probably just woods.
What was that?
I don't know. Laurel knocking on something.
But yeah, so that's DeLorean.
The airplane tugs do not have the DMC-12 headlights.
Oh, that's good. That's a shame.
But what? But it doesn't. I mean, it's something. I definitely recommend looking it up.
Yeah. So, any closing thoughts? Anything you guys like? I learned a lot. I mean, just this one automotive story brushes over a myriad of other things. So, like DiGiario, Colin Chapman, Formula One, all the circumstances to create Lotus, all the circumstances to create the American muscle car, Lee Iacocca. I mean, this thing is just inundated with context that would take us literal years of screen time to really hit home of how interesting of a story this is. And but I think the craziest thing is just like, I don't know, just the fact that DeLorean, you could say what you will about billionaire executives now and in the past, but like DeLorean was genuinely a smart and innovative guy. He knew what he was about. He knew what he wanted, and I think it was just, I don't know. Yeah, I think he just flew too close to the sun.
That's really the only analogy you can use. Flew too close to the sun. He had the opportunity to take his millions of dollars, hundreds of millions of dollars, or whatever it may have been.
Right. Well, the story about burning bridges, with the executives that it almost sounds like he knew what he was doing playing the game.
Right. Yeah.
He was being the politician, businessman that he needed to be to start his own company with a lot of money in the back pocket.
Yeah.
End up with. I thought about something a minute ago when you were talking about the plane tugs. Did you see the gold DeLorean or DeLoreans? I think there may have been 3. Do you know about these?
Yeah.
Mm-hmm. Yes.
Y'all know about these?
Mm-hmm.
I want one. I think it'll never happen. But I think the retail price for a gold-plated DeLorean, of which I think there are 3 or were 3, was $40,000 at the time, which is like $200,000 now.
Yeah.
For a car that does 0 to 60 usually.
It's probably even worse than the regular DeLorean. Was it real gold plating?
Gold plating, yeah.
Yeah. I think much heavier.
I think gold plating is a heavy
one, right?
Is it not?
Yeah, no. The McLaren F1 uses gold plating in the engine bay for heat.
We're talking about a different. We're talking about because that's probably like gold foil, right?
See, the difference between the McLaren and the DeLorean is that McLaren had a budget.
And also Gordon Murray.
Yeah, I don't know that the McLaren F1 did have a budget.
That's true. That's true.
That's gonna have to be
like the ultimate car at the time,
right? But yeah, Sam, what are your thoughts on this whole thing? Have you learned anything? Have you decided to change your ways for the better with your cocaine enthusiasm?
Oh, that. Well, so as enthusiasts go, no, I think it's interesting to see someone that is smart enough and driven enough and just fucking will.
Yeah.
Right. Like we'll take an idea and run with it, and we'll buck the system that we're working in. and do something anyway,
Right.
and end up with some pretty fantastic products. And then when he tried to do it on his own, the concept I think was sound. I think it could have been really rad with like half the weight, and the rotary would have been nice.
Yeah.
But you know, uh,
Right.
I mean, I think there's a lot of interesting twists and turns that turn it into, largely speaking, a failure.
Yeah.
With some bright spots in the middle. I enjoy it.
Yeah, I think it's partially a precautionary tale, but but yeah, Liam and Tony, what are y'all's thoughts on this?
Very fun, very very fun story. There's a lot that I did not know about the DeLorean story.
I didn't know just how much money there was.
Well,
That's a lot of
it
money.
kind of. So it's a story of opportunity, because I mean he never even would have been able to make it happen without without the influx of cash, or at least the promise of such from the British government to build on,
Which I mean, that's crazy.
in a essentially a war torn country at the time. So that was very opportunistic of him, but simply was not enough to build a car company from the ground, literally the ground up. And at this point, I mean, he's obviously becoming unhinged. That you could see that foreshadowing happen whenever he took over Chevrolet. And he had his enemies at Chevrolet, but whenever you're starting something from scratch, it just didn't seem like he had all of the right resources. He had some of the best people, to help him design the car, but he didn't seem like he had the best business people to help him start this company and get everything rolling and start turning a profit immediately like he needed to.
Yeah, John DeLorean was somebody that needed oversight to be successful, and
he needed a handler.
he needed a parental supervisor.
That's
Yes.
right.
Can you guys imagine what kind of crazy cars will be in existence today? So, he had a job at Chrysler, and he left Chrysler to go to GM. So, like, can you imagine if he stayed at Mopar, if he stayed at Dodge, what kind of cars would exist today?
Honestly, you couldn't. Who knows if it would have even been crazy or good or bad?
Right? Yeah.
He had to spread his wings and fly somewhere else.
Right. But yeah, if anyone has stuck it out this far, I appreciate you guys listening and or watching. This is kind of a different form of content this isn't the regular formula that we normally do. So anyone who's watching, please leave in the comments what you think of it. I say that knowing the irony that the only people who have ever commented on our videos are in this video.
also, when you say this isn't our normal form of content, this is 33% of the videos that we've made so far.
It is,
and that's a pretty large percentage,
right? Mm-hmm. So I'm thinking that stories like this, well researched, cited stories like this are it's something I like doing, and it's something that has a journalistic approach. And so I do want to do it, but this isn't. Please, dear viewer, don't expect this every episode.
This took him like probably close to a month to write.
Yep,
3 months ago.
Yeah, it was like it was like close to a dozen sources.
But I learned some things.
Mm-hmm. Mm-hmm. Yeah, me too.
All right, enough apologizing for the episode. It was a fun episode.
I'm sorry that I was here.
Well, you brought a cat. So.
I did bring a cat. Yeah,
you brought Iggy.
I did feature Iggy.
Can before we say goodbye, can you bring Iggy back once more?
I don't know if Iggy's still in the room. I got Bjorn here.
Bjorn works.
Hey, come here. No, he's not having it.
Okay. Yeah, well, guys, this was an episode of Drive Theory. This was the story of DeLorean, the crazy true story of a coked up American visionary. Enthusiast. Yeah. My name is Isaac. This is Sam. We're also
That's
joined.
Liam.
Yep.
That's Tony. Good luck editing that, Isaac, to where we're pointing at each other.
I'm not going to edit that at all. You guys are going to get that iRobot meme that's just like,
this is Isaac. That Sam.
That's not even where they are for me.
That's where they are for me. Yeah.
All right, fantastic. Well, good night, boys.
All right, see you guys.
Thank y'all for watching.
Oh!